Here we go again, Brandon. It's Saturday morning on the East Coast, so that means it's definitely morning time on the West Coast. Like, it looks like the sun is up, right?
Yeah, it's coming in pretty aggressively through my window right now. I have a
Nice.
nice morning view with a pool right outside. So
Oh, you got a morning up of a view of
honestly,
the
it's
pool.
not that like extravagant. My apartment is more like a motel vibe, where everybody looks into the pool. It's not
Nice.
private. It's not private.
I see. I see.
Yeah,
Reminds me of those movies.
yeah. It's like a '70s California motel.
It looks like you've had time to get the crust off your ice at least, so I think we're good. I think we're
Coffee.
awake. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, man. So, um, we are connecting today and recording this episode. I think like Swelly pretty much gaslit us into doing this.
Yeah,
A
it's been
lot of emotional pressure trying to get us to sit down and talk more about the experience of building courses and why we did it and why it's so important. So here we go. The one of the things that I wanted to start with is exactly that, right? Is like why did we build this? Why do we think it's so important? And why it is that we built it the way we did, right? And the thing that was really cool about this experience is that it was like you know the cross section of many different disciplines. You had the tech, right, the engineering side, you had the linguistic side, and of course you had the cinematography and content creation side, and ultimately the performance, the people that we brought on to help us build this thing. But yeah, man, I mean, if I were to talk about the why from like a personal standpoint, um my experience is the following, right? Like I've from way back when I was still on the islands. I was told that in order for me to have opportunities in life, I needed to learn English, because English is the language of innovation, it's the language of technology, it's the language of science, it's the language of everything. And we know how that turned out, right? We're very well aware of all that's been said and done, and why things are the way they are. But now it's up to us to decide on what we do next, right? And that's what I did. I learned English, and that opened up a number of doors and opportunities, especially in education and employment, right? And with that, I've been able to engage and immerse myself in the global economy. And yeah, I've achieved results. There's a level of stability that you achieve when you speak the language of the working economy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, but then, but then the question is like, what about those kids, back home whose parents couldn't afford to send them to English school, right? What happens to them? They effectively get disenfranchised from opportunities, right? So if I were to answer why it is that I'm part of this and that I'm building this, is I want to make sure that our languages, right, the languages that we speak from birth, or from our childhood, that it's not a barrier to entry, right? That it's not an inconvenience, right?
Mhm.
That it actually is um, a gateway to opportunity. But the problem is, again, the world doesn't speak our language. So that's the problem that I'm trying to solve here, is starting with education. Let's build scalable resources, accessible resources for the language, so that like institutional stakeholders have access to that language and become culturally competent, and build programs in healthcare, in education, in technology, that empowers Creole communities in the diaspora, right? And the thing that is really cool about that is that when you empower these communities, it comes full circle, right? Because then these communities, they enter the working economy, and then they help build the value that these institutions build to serve a global audience. So that is like my big why, and the view that I have for, and the vision that I have for why it is that I decided to build, to be part of this, and build this what we're calling a full stack language platform, starting with these courses, these self-paced courses that we're starting to roll out. Yeah, over to you.
That was beautiful. Yeah, so as the linguist on the team, I'm tasked with kind of putting together the nuts and bolts of a language that's very hard to kind of tack down because there's just so much variation and a lot of natural just variation in terms of spelling. There's been limitations in terms of education, so you have all these challenges that have made it really hard to put Kriolu on paper. But it's definitely something I'm passionate about. I was born and raised in, I would say, the heart of the Cabo Verdean immigrant community in Brockton. Born and raised there to Cabo Verdean parents. My mom was 4 when she came over, so I always grew up speaking a lot more English with her. And my father was 18 when he came here, so it was a lot more Kriolu spoken. So I think growing up in that environment where I had two sides of the family that came to the States at different times, I was exposed to a lot of of the code switching and differences. So I would see like my mom and her brothers use a lot of like English slang while using Kriolu, versus like with my father's family, it was very strict, like Kriolu de Fogo. And so like going from one house to the next, you'd notice differences, and like really noticing like, all right, what do I feel more comfortable speaking about more complicated things when I'm speaking in English versus when I'm with my Cape Verdean family, you feel a little more limited. And that was definitely a big part of why I decided to go into linguistics. I just grew up in an environment where language was always something I noticed. And so when I started learning like French, Spanish, and Portuguese and other Romance languages, again, you get really, really reminded of how limited you can be in Kriolu, and that was really frustrating for me. So when this opportunity came to be a part of this team and help, not only like help officialize the language, but also help remove some of these artificial limitations from it, was really exciting for me.
Yeah, emphasis on the artificial limitation part, right? Because it's an idea that a lot of us have of the language, because whenever we're trying to convey complex thoughts or complex ideas, we find ourselves having to code switch. But it's not necessarily, or to switch to English or Portuguese, for example. But it's not necessarily because the language itself doesn't allow you to express those complex thoughts and ideas. It's because we just haven't given ourselves the opportunity to do that, to express those thoughts and those complex ideas in our own language, right? Especially with us who end up, say, growing up outside of the country, or leave like in my case, I left the country when I was like 17. So a lot of the complex thoughts and like my consciousness, even the complexity of my consciousness, a lot of it by now has been built up mostly on the basis of English. So whenever I want to express complex ideas, I find myself just having to think in English or speak in English.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's the same for a lot of people back home, because they went to school speaking Portuguese. They work their jobs, the way they engage and conduct their professional lives on the basis of Portuguese. So I think it's the same thing. So that's one thing that I loved about this experience, especially working on this with you, is seeing how you were able to, look at the mechanics of English and go, wait, actually, we can do these same things in Kriolu. Like we can convey these same complex ideas and thoughts in Kriolu. So that was like, I'm just reading this. I'm like, wait, we actually we actually can't do this, and it would be great if we could equip people with these tools, as many of them as we can, with these tools moving forward.
Yeah, those were, I think the experiences you're talking about were times where we were going over like example sentences and trying to figure out how to say things with like our language experts. So we're speaking with native speakers, and I'm trying to figure out, I mean, like the prime example for me is the word bounce. Um,
Yeah.
like we talked to four or five. I spoke to someone that used to coach the national basketball team, and I was like, "How do you say bounce in Kriolu?" And everyone could like figure out like, "Oh, this is how you say to jump or to jump back," but we could never express like this motion of something bouncing across the room and coming back. It was
Yeah.
always like just here and there. So it was like really having to look at just like the nuances and like what you're actually trying to express. And a lot of times it would either be switched a little bit or Kriolu would just find a completely different way of expressing it, which is fine. It's beautiful. But for someone that's like an English speaker, it can be frustrating. And so I know because
Mhm.
a lot of our audience speak English as their first language, like these were issues that we are going to run into. So it's good for me to have like the perspective of our demographic, but it can also be a little frustrating when it's time to like actually figure out how is this actually spoken, because I don't want to tell people what I think when in reality it might be a different way. So it's
Yeah.
been tricky because you might find a one-to-one translation in English and in Portuguese, but that doesn't mean that that's how it's going to be said in Creole or how it is said.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that these expressions, right? These things, they 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 come up because of like local circumstances, right? Like basketball is very popular in America. It's been popular in America for a very long time. So, of course, over time, Americans or English speaking people are going to find ways to describe that motion of the ball bouncing back and forth. In Cabo Verde, it's kind of different, where basketball hasn't. Basketball only became, let me see, me growing up, basketball was kind of popular, but before me, it probably wasn't that popular because our
No,
main sport is soccer. Soccer is
yeah,
like a
I
king
guess
sport.
my dad played growing up, so for me, I always associated with basketball being pretty popular back in CV
Hmm.
because he
Okay,
always talked
so
about playing back there.
I
So,
see. So
but
maybe it
yeah,
was my island. I don't know.
he that was just
I grew up
that's
in
my
Sal.
favorite example. It's like
I
he
I know that
he'll
in
talk to
Praia.
four or five people like, "Hey,
Yeah.
bounce," and every single time it was just, "Oh, salta patadas." I'm like, "No, it's not bounce. Not come back. I needed to like."
Yeah. Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are the
No.
things you
No.
think about when
Those
you
are.
like when you think about how do you empower people to write like more literature or stories in Creole. Like you want to be able to have these powerful like linguistic tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and that's why also, as we're in the middle of producing the advanced level courses, like I can't wait for people to see some of that stuff that we have there, because I'm reading through it and I'm like, wow, this is like the way we're expressing these perfect or past perfect tenses, whatever, the linguistic stuff that you know
yeah,
much
I
more about
think
than me.
that a lot of that like comes from having learned French. They're
Mm.
very like strict and the rules are very laid out. So I mean that gave me a lot of framework for like the grammar behind it because French, Portuguese, Spanish, and from there Creole have a lot of like grammatical structures that are similar. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's very tricky to put these things into like words for day-to-day speakers because you might use them, but you don't recognize what you're actually using in terms of like the past perfect. I can't,
Mm-hmm.
might not be able to define that, but if I give you an example sentence, you can figure it out and explain to me, oh, this is there because I'm trying to explain that this happened in the past before something else had happened. And it's
Right.
saying it this way because the order of events is important.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like it's a lot easier. Like when we convey these ideas in English, for example, it makes sense to me. But when I see it being conveyed in Kriolu, I'm like, all of a sudden, it's like, oh wow, our language is actually has the mechanism to express these same things. So it's part of building these courses. Even for me, a native speaker, it's been very very revealing, and I learned a lot about my language through this process. So I guess the thing that I think is important to call out here with the approach, especially with the approach that you took with how you went about designing these courses, is the lending the legitimacy of rigor to the language, right? Because up until now, or maybe I think things are changing, but um, Kriolu still, I think, in my view, still is treated as an informal language, right? Not something that can be used to in official and informal settings, precisely because I think that people are not aware of the fact that you can convey certain ideas and complex thoughts using the language. And that's part of the reason why you don't see it in schools, you don't see it in mainstream media, because people feel like they can't, I'll say, maybe they can't communicate intelligently using the language, right? Is that I think I got the sense of a bit of your frustration on that end when you were talking about trying to convey certain ideas and finding how that it was limited. But through this process, has that changed your mind a little bit? Like, are you starting to see, or are you there already, that like, no, we actually aren't limited. We just need the power of education to kick in.
I think we need the power of education, and then a little bit of like establishment. Yeah, a little bit of establishment of like new rules or new like agreements. So I say that because historically, like languages are outlined and rules are made by governing bodies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Rules are made arbitrarily, they're decided, and then they're taught, and then over time they're absorbed and integrated into how people naturally speak. And so that can be followed very strictly, where it's like people speak exactly the way they write all the time, formally and informally, or it can be, hey, we write this way, but we don't speak this way at all.
Yeah.
And I think with Kriolu, like if you're looking at it from the perspective of people that live on the country, I think one, making it an official language is the first step. And then I think from there, it needs to be integrated into schools. But
Mm.
before you can do that, you have to like agree on some things. Like we have the alphabet, but how are we going to spell stuff?
Yeah.
Um, there's different dialects that use different forms of the same word. So do you, and this is where I think you should do, is like, do you allow multiple spellings of the same word? Do you
Mm.
penalize someone using the spelling from like San Vicente versus Santiago, or do you just allow it? Because like if you're growing up in the like if you grow up in like Massachusetts, you might have a good understanding of different dialects, but you might not be able to distinguish, oh, that word's from Fogo, or that word's from Praia. I shouldn't use that one if I'm speaking Criollo de Praia. Like it's gonna be all over the place.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's an interesting question to ask, because in our day to day, most people could care less. You know what I mean? Most people will will speak any of the variants without paying much attention to correct forms or correct spelling. So it's always in the academic sphere that
Yeah.
things start getting a little more intense in that regard.
I think we can look at English too as a good like reference because English has a lot of dialects itself. Like I don't speak like I live in San Diego. I can hear my Boston accent, and then mine is subtle.
Mm,
Like I can hear that. Or if you go down south, go to Florida, you go to Alabama, everyone's speaking very differently. But I don't think there's no different spelling. And so that
right.
might be a good way of looking at things. Excuse me. Um, but yeah, I think that's something that we have to tackle. like spelling is going to be a big thing. Which word do we use? Is there one that's the primary and there's one that's a secondary? Or are they all just level playing field? You can use whichever spelling works. And then figuring out, like I was saying, there's perceived limitations where I'm like, hey, how do we not have a word for this? How can we not express this? I don't want to have to use English or Portuguese. In those situations, like, what do? Do we make up a new
Hmm.
word? Do we use the Portuguese word? Is there
Right,
like
the
an
borrowed words. Yeah,
uh,
no, I
good
get it.
question to ask?
I think that, and I'm interested in seeing how things evolve in this regard. But I think that if we want there not to be a lot of operational overhead, we are gonna have to get to a point where it's like it's sort of like English, right? Like in America we say schedule, but in the UK they say schedule. But hey, the spelling is the same.
Well, no, they spell words differently in the UK. Certain
They
words.
do?
Yeah. There's a lot of words that are spelled differently.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But a lot of times
Oh, yeah,
it's
but
not like
it's
a
not it's
thing.
it
All right.
it's not like a big difference though, right?
Sometimes
Like
no, like aluminum, they mess that word up. They say like aluminium. But like other words like color, like if I remember correctly, and I could probably Google this, Americans spell a lot of words differently because we were going for like the cost of letters on like newspapers. So like
oh wow.
silent U's and stuff were like so color they use like there's a U there. We just take out the U. Let me
Yeah.
look at if I have it
Yeah,
right.
it's like the yeah, all of a sudden it's like the economy of of letters. And we kind of have a similar concept when it comes to accents, which is like a big the use of accents in Kriolu, which is like a big discussion. And it's one of those things going back to what you were saying about, you know, having an agreement or settling on something that makes sense. Because to this day, we still, even with the rules of the alphabet, you can still see people who are, um, how do I say, acquainted or even experts with the rules of the alphabet. You still see differences in how, especially around how they use accents. So I think that before we implement this stuff across education, especially back in the islands, we're gonna have to reach some sort of like we're gonna have to revisit those rules and those standards in my opinion, because it's like I keep thinking of that situation where now you're gonna provide like standardized tests for the whole country. Like, how do we do this? You know what I mean? How do we put put out a test across different islands that accommodates the local variation? So, and these are things that, this is why it's so important to make the language official, because it's not until it's like some people keep saying, no, let's sort this out and then make the language official, and others are saying, no, let's make the language official so that we get the incentive to sort these things out. And I think it's like the latter that's going to have to happen.
I agree. I think there has to be a decision to officialize it, and then from there, all right, what do we need to address in order to have it be a functioning official language?
Yep,
Uh,
yep.
it's not far from that. I mean, people use it every day.
Already, yeah, we do, that's for sure. Okay, so moving on real quick, to get back on track with our discussion today around courses. Like, I just want to let people know, that this wasn't something that we said we're gonna do and everything went our way, right? It was it was very challenging, so much so that we spent 2 years just trying to build this thing, you know, and
Old.
you know, one of the yeah one of the one of the challenges was finding teachers, finding people to work with us. And there were some people that we were very excited to work with, and unfortunately they didn't, our schedules, right, the timing wasn't quite right, and they recognized the value of what we were doing, and they said, hey, I'm not going to be able to do it justice, so I'm not going to have the bandwidth to engage here. But other people, man, and this is a problem in the community. They started working with us and then they just ghosted. Like it's and this is one of the major beefs that I have with community leaders is we have a lot of work to do in this respect. Like if you when you give someone your word, just engage. You know what I mean? If you can't, say you can't. But don't say, we have this thing in the community where we're like, yeah, we're going to do it. And then we start working and then things just fall by the wayside eventually. And
Love
people
my
just stay
Cabo Verdean
quiet.
people.
And,
Love my Cabo Verdean people. Edmar's out here making it. I love my Cabo Verdean people. We're,
right,
we're always on time. We're never late. We do what we say.
right. Sure, absolutely.
We tease.
So that was one of the big challenges that caused a lot of delays with this project. Um, and but then we ran into you. You know, you like fell from the heavens, and we're like, okay, so we have now we got to move, right? And so it was one of those things that it's like, you know, these teachers were not able to get them, we're not able to get them to work with us, but at the same time, it's almost as if like, how do I put it? There's that expression. It's like a blessing in disguise type of thing, right? Like because of that, things actually ended up going in a direction that now I think looking back, it's like, wow, this is how we should have been doing it from the jump, right? So especially with you jumping on board, now we had the expertise, right? You went on and you built the curriculum, and me, I was in charge of the tech side and just the overall production side. But yeah, it was a nice. It was after 2 years. Unfortunately, it took 2 years for us to go. Okay, maybe it's time for us to just take matters into our own hands. And then with you, bringing the linguistic expertise, that was like the big missing puzzle piece that made that self-reliance possible, right? So yeah, I just wanted to put that little tidbit out there for people to know, because we are getting a lot of great feedback. You know, the word that I keep hearing is that it is unmatched, right? Everybody's feedback is like, what you guys are doing is just unmatched, and I'm glad that it turned out to be that way, because it's been it's been a struggle. It's been a long road.
Yeah, I'm happy with a lot of the feedback. I think most of it's been positive, and the not negative, but the constructive feedback has been stuff that I expected. Like I think the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing that we've heard is that it's very technical, which can be good and bad when it comes to language. Um, I think on the negative element, you can focus too much on grammar and too much on writing, and not enough on actually like speaking and hearing the language, which depending on the language can just be like a natural challenge that you have to overcome. Like if you live in an area where you don't have native speakers around you and it's a minority language, it's gonna be tough. Like if I was to look at, because I live in San Diego, if I decided to learn Kriolu by myself in San Diego for the first time, who am I gonna talk to? Like
Yeah.
there's Cape Verdeans in LA, but like I'm not gonna drive there every day to practice. And so I really wanted to give people the tools they need to understand like the inner workings behind it, and then from there give them some strategies to actually take those tools and like put them in the world and practice them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, I think you should know a little bit about how your car works before you take it for a drive. I think that was like kind of the thing I had in my mind. But yeah, I think the intermediate and the advanced courses do a really good job in kind of taking those like technical elements and then showing you how they're applied in more like realistic situations.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that I don't think it's like, I haven't heard people say that it's very technical, but I have heard people say that some of the lessons are kind of like pretty technical. Uh, but
That's
the
one thing.
thing,
Like, sorry to cut you off. Like, I've
sorry.
learned it. I've had experience learning languages like outside of being a heritage speaker, and it is technical. Like I've done Spanish one, French one. You don't go
Hmm.
into like syntactic trees and like phonetics.
Sure.
That's usually like third year if you even get into that kind of stuff. But I think with Kriolu, like if we're having a journey of making it official, we have to look at these like nitty gritty things if we want to accelerate and actually like promote it becoming more official in a somewhat artificial way. Like typically
Hmm.
languages become official because everyone's speaking it and the government's like, all right, this is what we're doing. We're trying to convince the government.
Right.
So it's
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So exactly. So this goes back to the legitimacy of academic rigor, right? That we're not just we're not just teaching you how to speak it, but we are giving you insights into the inner workings of the language and how it connects across to English, right? And that's the thing that I really liked about how you that I really liked about how you went about teaching the language is because this is catered towards English speakers. One the approach that you took that I really appreciated is like, hey, here are the sound. Here's the typical sounds. Here are the typical sounds that we make in English. Some of these sort of like cross over, but some of these don't, right?
yeah.
Or here's the typical structure for conveying a certain idea or certain thought in English. In Kriolu, you have to switch these things over. So I think that when you give people that those insights, all of a sudden they're willing to they're going in with that baggage, right? Instead of just like listening to certain patterns over and over until they get it, they go in with the pattern up front. That way, when they're going to convey that idea, they're already able to put it in the correct structure or in the correct sequence or whatever, right? Without
Yeah. There's
and it take and again it takes practice. And the thing about these courses, you know, now that we are talking about sort of like how we built this machine, right? Is that they're self-paced courses, right?
mhm.
You you purchase them and you have access to them for life, right? This means that you can always go back and rewatch and pause and you can actually slow down the video, right? If there's something that's being said that maybe went too quickly and you're trying to give yourself some time to process the material, you can literally slow down slow down the video to give yourself that level of flexibility. Um, so even if there's like some technicalities in there, some technical details in there, it's actually up to you to decide on how you go about engaging with that material. You could, for all you know, you could just skip. You could skip and just go straight to the vocabulary or to dialogue, right?
Yeah.
But what is cool about the way we're building this is we have the academic rigor, we have the vocabulary, we're teaching you how to speak it, we're teaching you listening skills, and we're giving you cultural insights. Now it's up to you to watch this over and over again until it sticks.
I don't recommend that.
You don't?
No, I mean, yeah. As I was gonna say, so the course is set up to give you the tools that you may or may not need. Everyone learns differently. Um,
Mm,
like studying linguistics, I like to analyze things and look at them like nitty gritty. There's a little bit of bias with that with the course, and there's also a bias with it being pre-recorded. Not everyone learns well that way. I know some people need to be in an in-person class with other people. Some people just want to have a one-on-one conversation with a native speaker and just try and fail as many times as they can. Other people can, yeah, they can just listen to it over and over again and they'll internalize those things and they're super confident. They'll go use it and be good to go. So I think taking into account different learning styles was important, but also
mm,
different perspectives. Like I think we kind of have three, maybe four demographics that we're really targeting. The biggest one is English speakers in like in the U.S. primarily, but even within that, you have people that are heritage speakers like myself, where like they have some exposure to Kriolu, where they might speak it nearly fluent, and they just need to figure out like things here and there, or they only know how to say like hello and goodbye, thank you. That's it. Like
mm-hmm.
That's how my brother is. He barely uses Kriolu. A big reason why I wanted this would help teach him. But then you have English speakers where like they may have a few Cape Verdean friends, or they just decided to learn a random language that they have no association with. I've met those people before too. So they're gonna have different challenges and different strengths. Like learning Spanish, I was always blown away when sometimes I would get something quicker than like a heritage speaker. Like I've tutored heritage speakers in Spanish, and I'm like shocked that they can't explain something, but they understand it.
Mm.
And so that's a big thing that I wanted to address as well. And then you have like people from Cabo Verde, they speak Kriolu all the time. Like even going over with the experts, they were like, "Oh, I didn't know we could say it this way." Like
Right.
we were teaching the experts in some situations. And then finally, like, the last, I guess, kind of random group, but we have Cape Verdeans around the world who may not speak English, but they speak Kriolu in French or Kriolu in like Dutch. So
Right.
I think figuring out how we help them as well. They might just have to put it through an English translator, but it's all right.
Well, I mean, in general, we want to, because we've taken this direction of teaching Kriolu for English speakers. I think
Yeah.
it would be good for us to do the same for French speakers, Portuguese speakers, Spanish, whatever. And I think that's an approach that we'll definitely consider later on down the road, because I think it's a very effective approach to teaching the language, right? It's like we're not just gonna throw this stuff at you. We're actually gonna tell you how you connect it back to the language that you speak every day, because that I think that is a very practical and effective way of teaching the language, and it's not an approach that I see a lot of people taking. Maybe we're the only ones ever to really do this, to take this approach, right? To be constantly, not constantly, but to be saying, here's how things work in English. Know that these parts still work in Kriolu, but the other parts, this is how it works in Kriolu. I think that was a smart way to do this. Okay, so you built a curriculum. I built the tech platform, or we had a couple individuals work with us on building the tech platform. So you've talked about how you've tried to fill in a gap that you saw out here, and the way in which we built the platform was basically doing the same, right? Up until now, you could learn Kriolu, but you'd need to be on a call, like a synchronous call like this one, at such and such time on this day. And one of the challenges that we were trying to solve was, first, life happens. Sometimes I need to go pick up my child from something, or I need to tend to a family emergency, or I don't know, the train broke down and I'm not anywhere near my laptop, right? And you miss those days, and catching up is probably going to be challenging, right? Another one is, even if you go through these online synchronous calls for these classes, you have nothing to refer back to but your notes. And I can tell you, I'm not that good at taking notes. So that stuff can also be very challenging. So this is the approach that we took. Is we could have very well built a platform that was like a catalog of teachers that you could book with and learn, right?
Yeah.
But that's something that's already happening, right? A lot of different people already do that. So with us, we said our contribution is going to be building a way to let you, the moment you purchase these courses, you have access to them for life. You can always go back and get a refresher again, play it on repeat, do whatever it is that you want to do with them. We think that was a big gap that we needed to fill in the market.
Yeah, I'm not saying to not rewatch the courses. I'm just saying, hey, don't just watch it 4 times and be like, all right, I'm good to go. But yeah, I think that, like what you're saying is valid points. Like we said, like everyone learns differently, but everyone should also learn things differently. Like you shouldn't just stick to one learning technique. There's a lot of benefit to live classes. Like you get to
Yep.
practice in real time and get immediate response and immediate
Mm-hmm.
feedback. But there's also benefits to being able to just sit down, no pressure, watch a course a few times, write out your notes, write out some questions, maybe go ask somebody, come back. So
Mm-hmm.
there's benefits to that as well. Um, but I think everyone should do a big mix of both.
Yeah, yeah. And actually it's one of the feedback that we got from some other people is that our courses they complement the other methods that they've used to learn the language really seamlessly.
Yeah.
But with the added benefit of us offering something that is just like they say, not my words, people, their words, unmatched, right?
Yeah, and
As
you
far as
pace
the material
yourself.
and the content goes.
You're pacing yourself. Like our courses, you can blow through them in a weekend and get through a lot of like content. If you're doing like a online like live class, it might be 1 hour a week to get through like 4 chapters in like a month. And then in that hour, you're also having to wait for other people to ask questions and go at their pace and making sure everybody's on board before you move on versus like, all right, I'm good, let's keep going. Like if you're in a situation where you grow up in a household where you use Kriolu a good amount, you might not have to learn how to say bon dia. All right, let's go to chapter two.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a big element of it as well. Um, but that's definitely something that I've been thinking of how we can implement more like practice and just more like peer to peer like practice.
Yeah, yep. And yes, that's the beautiful thing about building a technology-based platform, right? Is we can change it, we can extend it, we can improve it over time. Um, but just to go back to what you were sort of alluding to, another big feedback that we got from the audience is that, every course that they take out there is basics. It's like beginner level,
Yeah.
right? There's nobody offering the next thing, the next level. And that's another gap that we're coming in to fill is, yes, right now, as of the recording of this podcast, we have the beginner course for the Santiago Criollo variant. The intermediate has been produced and it's currently going through post-production. The advanced level will be getting produced in a couple weeks or so. And not only that, we're also offering courses for different variants, right? Currently, we're soon going to release the beginner course for the San Vicente variant. So this is another thing that we're doing that nobody else is doing, which is we're giving you a platform that teaches you multiple variants, not just one, not just the one that your instructor knows best, for example. So I really do think that we're making a very impactful contribution here to the community because, believe it or not many people know the amount of variations that we have in the language, right? It's like you can you could learn Fogo, but once you land on San Vicente or Sal, you're
Dude,
going to
I
be...
I will never forget being in CJ's studio, going over the San Vicente script and sitting in the room like, yo, are these guys speaking Criollo right now?
Right, right.
I like from Brockton, my family's from Fogo and Brava, so like I'm used to that and Criollo de Praia, a little bit Criollo de Maio, like a little bit of that. I've been to Sal. It's fine. I had never heard Bezot. Never.
That that is a word that I can't tell you how many
I was
people,
like, yo, I don't
like
think I
their
should be here
reactions.
right now. Like,
That
but it
one
was
word
fine. Like
all of
I
a sudden made you
understood it.
feel
I
like you don't
understood it
belong.
quickly, and then like it's pretty close to what you see in like Spanish and Portuguese. So I was like, all right, I see what you're doing, but like yeah, there's just like little stuff like that. You're like, yo, is this the same language?
And hey, that's what makes this language even more beautiful, right? Like it's so rich in phonetic, in the sounds and in the expressions that in turn, that is what makes it such a beautiful language, and a language that a lot of people eventually become very passionate about. Like someone,
Yeah,
I was
it's
talking to someone the other day, and he was like,
yeah.
I just took your Santiago course, but I can't wait for the San Vicente one because I went to San Vicente on vacation and I just love the place and I want to learn that variant as well.
No, I think it deepens your like understanding of what you speak, and then it allows you to travel a lot more easily and connect with other Cape Verdeans.
Hmm.
But you see
And
it in
the
every, like we said, every language has variations, and they've addressed it in some way or not, and people just figure it out. I think we have the unique opportunity and challenge where we can officialize a language while also respecting its variations.
Absolutely, and that's gonna be important. It's gonna be a must. Otherwise, forget it. Right? We're not gonna be able to get past that sort of like cultural
Yeah,
uh,
like we're
demand
trying to
of
make a
like.
democratic language program when usually it's a dictatorship.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, like usually, hey, this is how we're spelling things. This is how it's
Right.
written. You guys can talk however you want, but this is how we're writing it, and we're trying
Yeah.
to take the way people speak and unify it into a writing system. So it's definitely
Yep.
not the traditional way of officializing, but I would like to do it this way if we can.
Yeah, I think, and it'll be unique and innovative because in Seychelles, the Seychelles Creole, that's what they did. They have different variations, but they said no, this is the one that we're gonna make official. This is how you write it, and like you said, you can speak and do your thing in whichever variation you want. But this is the one that we're making the official variant of the language. So, but us Cape Verdeans,
Very yeah.
it's impossible because Seychelles, I think they have tens of thousands of speakers. We have millions at this point, right,
I
across the
remember
diaspora.
talking to my uncle, and I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna say that we're gonna start with the most popular dialects and do San Vicente and Santiago." He was like, "Do not say the word popular." I was
Yeah.
like, "Got it."
but but the thing is, yeah, I mean, from a cultural standpoint, that's not gonna sit right with people, but
We
it
say
is
popular in terms of most native, like for context, based off of the number of speakers, not based off of
population.
who thought
Yeah,
was better.
exactly. I mean, the word popular comes from like population. You have a
Yeah, but
bigger
it
population
has a
speaking.
connotation. Yeah, it has a connotation.
Exactly, it's the
But yeah,
connotation
that
that it's
that
so
was like,
it's those cultural nuances that we'd have to deal with there. But no, I think that if we commit to it, we will give each variation its rightful representation that it deserves, that they deserve.
yeah. I think
Uh,
even through doing this like work that we've made a little bit of progress, especially with like the accents and spelling like paradigms. Like that was a big area of confusion even with like experts that we consulted with. Like, hey, we have a general idea of how the accents work, but we can't all like agree on one set of rules.
mhm.
I think we did a good job with that in the course. That should bring a little bit of like uniformity. I think every dialect can kind of address those rules and use them correctly.
Yep, yep. Okay, so now the other part that I want to touch on is the production, because the production itself had its own challenges and it was a whole project in and of itself, right? So there was you designing the curriculum, there was the engineering team here building the tech platform, and then it was like the production, which is a whole nother ball game that we had to play to make this a reality. Um,
It was fun
so
though. Yeah, it was fun. And then it was weird because like I've driven by that studio thousands of times living in Brockton. Thousands. You would never know that
no
there's a
idea.
studio there. No idea.
Same here.
So
Like
for me,
I've
that
lived.
was super cool.
Yeah, shout out to folks over at Anawan Studios, especially Cisco cinematographer and Darwin Gaffer, who's still working with us to this day, helping us build these courses. But yeah, I mean, I lived next to Anawan Studios for like a whole year, and I had no idea that there was
I
a
drove
whole.
by
like a
From there in
whole
between my
film
house and my
studio.
grandmother's house, I was going past there every day,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like a
twice a
whole
day.
film studio over here, and I'm like, how did these guys do it? Because I've never seen like a slate, a camera, nothing. And like, how is that possible? And you know how logistically crazy it is to make film. You know, you have trucks, you have crates, you have all of these things, these equipments being shuttled back and forth, and I've never seen any of that. And like, do you guys do this like in the dead of the night when everybody's sleeping?
It's 2 a.m. That's no
It's
traffic.
crazy. Exactly. But yeah, going back to producing this, you know, the cool choice that we made was with teaching these courses is, you know, after you've built the curriculum and written the material, right, with academic rigor, with tons of vocabulary, a lot of opportunities to practice pronunciation and listening and writing, um, and us building, and the engineering team building the tech platform. Now it was like, okay, now we actually need to go capture this content. And one of the cool approach that we took, especially with who's going to teach this on camera, is we went out on the hunt for native speakers, right? So we built a tech platform. You bring the academic rigor, and the idea with native speakers is to bring the authentic voice, right? The authenticity of the language on camera. And the thing is, you know, if you're going to be on camera, you need to be comfortable with being on camera. And not only that, we don't want you to sound like you're just reading off of a script, right? You need to actually perform. So we had to not only find native speakers, but we needed to find native speakers who are, of course, fluent in English because they're teaching an English audience, comfortable on camera, and performers, right? Like, because we want them to bring who they are with their language, the language that they've been speaking since the crib, right? All of that needs to translate really well on camera. So straight up, we've been working with actors, Cape Verdean actors, artists, musicians, models. You know, these are and these are people who are already leaders in the community, right? They run, like you said, they run their own businesses. They're in performing arts. So these courses are being taught by familiar faces in the community. So that's like the magnitude of this project, of this whole thing that we put together, from the curriculum to the tech to the production to the performance. All of this had to come together in building a really what we're calling a premier experience for learning the language.
Yeah, no, it was really fun. I've like been part of like live shows and stuff and seeing things done on stage, but it's a lot different when everything has to be perfect, quiet, lighting is just right, make sure all the lint's off your shirt, no wrinkles, look at the camera but don't look at it like too head on because then you look like a serial killer, and then read the script but don't sound like you read. It was a lot. Like I only recorded a couple of chapters. Like I'm not a main like instructor, but even then I was pretty nervous, and like you just think about every little word and how you're reading it, and then that gave me a lot more perspective when I was writing like the intermediate and the advanced courses, to not have like these really long sentences, because I tend to do that when I'm just writing for someone to read something. Like I love a long sentence, but when you're trying to read a teleprompter and there's like, all right, where's the next comma going to be? Like, when do I pause?
Right.
Yeah, I had to really retailor my writing. But I think in the long run, it makes it easier for not just the performer, but also the person watching the course. So that was definitely a learning curve. But then also trying to make sure that we had not just only technical Kriolu. Like we tried to incorporate a little bit of humor, a little bit of like cultural information, and just trying to make it fun too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like explicit.
Yeah, and you know, like with the that's the usual pattern when you're building something like this for the first time, is like everything is like so how do I put it, sort of like overcomplicated a little bit, like, because you want to build something that is like quality, but you overlook the ways in which you could go about doing this efficiently. So
Yeah.
over time, just like you said, you had these long sentences, and then and in terms of production, I mean, we had all sorts of crazy stuff going on. Like, we had a green screen, for crying out loud. We didn't have just a boom microphone. We had
CGI like that. We
yeah,
don't
we
have a CGI budget. What are we doing?
exactly, like we had a boom mic, and we also had the lav, right? Like those little mics that you put under your shirt. Like, it was, and we had a crew when we first started. I mean, we had a crew of like 10 people.
Did we have like an 8K camera? I don't even know that was a thing. I was like, dude,
Right.
most TVs can't handle this, but we got it.
Exactly. So over time, the process we just started simplifying things over time. Like, the crew got smaller. Like, today, we figured out that we actually we can produce the same quality with just 3 people on set, right? Green screen is gone, because in post-production, removing green screen, it was a nightmare. So now we just have a white backdrop. I mean, if we're going to end up with a white backdrop anyways, when we remove the green screen, we might as well just shoot on a white backdrop, right? Like you said, we were shooting in like 8K. Now it's like, guys, this is just a course. This is not like this is not going to be on IMAX.
Where can you watch 8K? Do you have to go to like an IMAX theater?
I
think 8K isn't, like, hardware isn't ready for it.
I think IMAX has his own lane, but again, the idea is like, we need to put things in context. These are just online courses. You don't need 8K. You don't need 4K quality. You just need 1080p.
Yeah.
That's it. You're good.
On this iPhone 14 does not need 8K.
and like you said, even in terms of the scripts, it's like, I'm gonna make this performer read 3 paragraphs on the teleprompter. Well, at some point over the course of shooting these courses, this person is probably gonna get teleprompter fatigue. So how can I condense these 3 paragraphs into maybe a paragraph and convey the same idea and same amount of information? So that's what was so beautiful about this process, is we started like with all the bells and whistles, and then over time things got simpler and simpler and simpler. And the thing about starting with all the bells and whistles is that, there's delays, there's technical issues. If it took something that we thought we could shoot in like 2 days, all of a sudden it's like 3-4 days.
Yeah.
But as things got simpler and simpler, right, with the intermediate courses, we killed it. 2 days done with one course.
Even there. Yeah, I was insane. And you were like, hey, everything went great. I was like, all right, perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Because you kept on checking on me, like, probably because of the memories that you had from the beginner courses, right? Because some things didn't really go as well as we thought they would. But I guess it was a bit of a surprise to you to be like, oh, well, I guess things are going well for the intermediate courses. Like, this guy's not even calling me.
I was like, hey, dude, I can't fly out, but I'll be on call, like, if you need anything. And then my phone was just silent.
And
I was like, hey, are we good? Like, the studio burned down. Like, what's up, man?
Right.
Like, yeah, it's definitely got a lot more streamlined, and I think it just means that we can put out more content more quickly. And that's what we're looking at now. Is like, what are the next steps now that we've laid out, I think, a pretty good foundation? Where can we fill in any cracks here and there, and then where can we start to build new resources to tailor to different needs?
Yep. Funny story. For our beginner course, we were working with this amazing actor whose name is Zaire Silva, and we came in and we set up the lighting and everything. We're ready to go, and this guy decides to show up with glasses on.
Yeah, if you got glasses, don't come to the studio.
And we're all like, oh my, we're gonna have to change the whole configuration of the lights, because when he was in front of the camera, you could see the lights reflecting from his eyeglasses, and you could still see them with the final result, but with the final cut of the courses. but it was even worse before we had to move things around. And it just goes to show, you know, one of those small things in productions that just throws everything
You
off
got classes,
completely.
you just have to memorize your lines.
Yeah. Like it's one of those
Make that a rule.
small things that just threw completely off, and it was like, and you don't just reconfigure lights, right? It's like, especially when you have a cinematographer like Cisco on set, he wants to make sure that this is gonna look good. So just be prepared to sit for like another hour until this guy gets you that picture perfect shot while you learn this beautiful language. um, okay, now, so what's the future looking like for what we're doing here?
Yeah, so I don't know how much I can reveal, but I feel like on my end, I'm looking at a few different projects. The biggest one is being able to develop like a bilingual language certification. So, how do we test and certify that people can speak a dialect of Kriolu, either to get an increase in salary? Like a lot of people can prove they speak Spanish and they get what, like 2-3% increase. That's a lot of money.
Yes,
That might be your groceries for the year or your
makes a
gas
big
for the year.
difference. Hmm.
Especially right now with these gas, dude. It's $6 out here a gallon for gas. So yeah, that's one element. Also, a lot of universities will give you college credits if you can prove that you speak another language. So if you take like
Hmm.
AP Spanish or French, you walk in with credits. Like I had,
And by the way, those credits could actually save you as much as like a semester's worth of tuition.
yeah. And then I know we both went to UMass. I went into UMass Amherst with AP credits, and I was technically a second year or second
Wow.
semester freshman going in. So I got to choose housing before everyone else in my class.
Wow.
So
Look
I
at
was
that.
almost like, as like so that was one perk. I got a little bit of priority on housing compared to other freshmen, and that followed me the whole time. I was always a semester ahead in terms of that kind of stuff. Saved money on books.
It's like it gives you a competitive edge,
Day one in the
you know?
UMass bookstore, I was ready to drop out. I was like, yo, this is crazy.
Yeah,
Spanish one
very
book is like
expensive.
150. So
And
if
not
you
only
speak,
that, try selling them back, and you'll see how much you get back. It's
so that's a
robbery.
big thing that we're looking at now. One, figuring out like what metrics we need to be looking for, what level people need to hit in order to actually qualify, and where we can fill in any gaps. If they're
Hmm.
testing something that isn't used or needed in Kriolu, how do we address that? So that's like the biggest thing that I'm looking at now. But then we're also looking at more specialized courses, so courses for professionals in like healthcare, law enforcement, legal services, and then also looking at courses specifically for kids because they learn
Hmm.
different.
Big unmet need, by the way. Everybody says it.
Kids and
Everybody says it.
family. I think parents um, can learn a lot from trying to teach their kids or just putting their kids in an environment to learn Kriolu.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, we're getting ready to start rolling out beginner courses for San Vicente variant. Right now, you can take the one for Santiago, and then we're gonna release intermediate and advanced levels for each of these variants. And like Brandon said, we're going to look at industry specific courses. We know that in healthcare, there's a big unmet need there for kids for sure. Courses for kids is another one that parents are like screaming for, right? Because they don't have time to sit with their kids and teach them the language. Because unfortunately, it's just this country, man. This country pulls parents out of their homes. Um,
Yeah. And then like we said, law enforcement is a big thing. Like my uncle's a cop in Connecticut, and he tells me how like there's not as many Cape Verdeans out there, but when he needs to, using Spanish has been an amazing like tool to
mm,
like really disarm a situation and bring people down.
wow,
He's not
look at
trying to
that.
chase people. He's not trying to kick anybody's ass. He's like, listen, if I can talk somebody down and save myself some time
Yeah,
and
save lives, save lives.
save lives, like physically and just like if someone doesn't have to go to jail, that's a huge,
Huge win.
huge impact on their life. And so
Mm-hmm.
giving police officers, especially like in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, the tools to communicate and not have to escalate things is huge. Um, yeah, those are the things we're starting to look at now. They're big things to take on, but I think with the foundation that we've already built, we can really just pivot a little bit and then just tailor things here
For
and there.
sure. And by the way, the story, we keep seeing a repeated pattern here where, as we go after each one of these problems, we get more and more validation for how much need there is out here for these things that we're building. When we first released the translations dictionary over the expressions dictionary, the translations one became the most actively used feature on the platform. We've released courses, and it's been about a month, and lesson plays are now the most popular activity on the site compared to dictionary lookups. So as we release each new feature, we get to see how much value we're providing to the audience, right?
Yeah.
um,
One thing I wanted to add to like the courses for like medical professionals. It's not just for nurses and doctors, it's also for people that have to take their family. Like as soon as I got my license, I was the dedicated chauffeur for my grandparents to go to all of their doctor's appointments because I was out of school on
wow.
early and my family had to work. So like I've been to like eye doctors, cardiologists, feet doctors, and like trying to explain, hey, my grandmother said that her foot hurts. Hey, my grandfather said he's fine. His back's not bothering him. Those are things that like kind of have to not make up, but I'm looking at like Portuguese for like medical terms and then
Yeah.
trying to figure that out. So like
Yep.
those are situations we want to help people navigate. I remember like the few times that there happened to be a Cape Verdean nurse in the office, night and day experience.
Yeah.
Like my grandfather
Absolutely.
is way more comfortable. He's having a good time versus like not trusting the doctor because he doesn't know
Yes.
if the doctor knows what's wrong.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a huge thing. Like I've experienced myself. So that's definitely
One
one.
hundred, 100%. You receive services in your language, the quality of those services go up dramatically. That is
Quality and
scientific
experience. Yeah, yeah.
scientific fact at this point. Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of building this foundation that you're talking about, is that is what we want. We want to actually empower the communities, these communities to be more self-serving, and to keep feeding this cycle of value creation, right? As we keep building these features, putting these courses and dictionaries in their hands, and making them as accessible as possible, they can then serve themselves with their own, you know, education, and then become more effective members of these communities. That's what this is about, man. And you know what? This is a good place to leave it at. As usual, me and you, we always go over time. We were supposed to do this for only 1 hour, but
I
10
had two
minutes is
hours.
not that
I
bad.
had 2 hours blocked off. My bad. Just ready to chat. Had my coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 hour, 1 hour, take 1 hour just to get up because, it is a Saturday morning, I guess, and then dial in.
Yeah,
All
I hear
right.
you.
Yeah, bro. Thanks again for everything. Thanks again for the amazing work that you've done so far and that I'm sure you're going to continue doing. Thanks to Ano One Studios. Thanks to Darwin and Cisco. And of course, our teachers, Zaire, CJ, and soon you're going to meet Jasmine, Maura, and then you're going to meet Alex for the advanced courses. And for the Santiago advanced course, it's a surprise. We will drop a name in the future. So stay tuned. Again, as always, if you want to reach out via email, easyhello@kriolish.com. We have a community on WhatsApp. Feel free to join that if you'd like, so we can give you support in real time. Subscribe to our newsletters. We send out these things called Translation Thursday newsletters, and people love them. Yeah, we have many channels through which you can engage and get in touch with us and help us build this beautiful platform.
Yeah, a lot out there, a lot more to come, and we need your help. So if you have any ideas, suggestions, criticisms, it's all good stuff. So
Exactly.
tune in.
All of that serves us really well. Cool. All right, Brandyn, once again, thanks for joining, man. Yeah, I'll see you on our weekly sync up on Tuesday.
Tuesday at 6 a.m. or 6:30. We're doing 6:30 Pacific time?
6:30, yes.
6:30.
We felt bad for you. We felt bad for you. All right. Peace.
All right, ciao.